All right, everybody. Thank you all for coming. Obviously, an exciting day here at Marshall University as we add more members of the Marshall football family. First off, we will have Coach Huff up here to discuss the class of 2023, and he will take questions after he opens with an opening statement. After that, we will have the players. They'll come around. You can ask 2 to 3 questions each player. In the interest of time, we'll keep it somewhat brief for them. That way they can get over to their event later on at 6 p.m. But thank you all for coming. And without further ado, Coach Huff.
Still impressed with how professional Grant is now. It's changed so much. But good to see everybody. Welcome back. A really exciting day. For us, it's kind of a combination of 2 days. Obviously, we have the early signing day, and then I get hit with all the questions of, who are the transfers, when are they coming, and we got to kind of let them get in and get in class and kind of get official before we can kind of announce them, and then we get the opportunity today to add them to the rest of the class. So really excited about these young men that we're adding. I think when you get a chance to get to know them, one, their character is going to stick out. The type of young men they are, the competitive energy and character that they display, not only on the field, but also in the classroom and in the community. I think a lot of these guys will fit what we would describe as a Marshall football player. And when you kind of get to know them individually, they kind of fit Huntington and everything that embodies this university and this community. Some of them are from near and some of them are from far. They've got a lot of unique backgrounds. I think just one thing about college football, especially now in the new age with the transfer portal and NIL and that world that we're living in, there's a lot more stories that you'll be able to kind of write and kind of get to know these guys individually throughout their time here. So I was able to bring in 25 guys total. That number used to be 25 high school guys, and we all get excited about their high school huddle films, but that number now has shifted a little bit. We ended up bringing in 12 high school guys, 13 transfer portal guys. If you guys remember last year, the number was a little bit higher. We've kind of got a model of kind of when we take heavy amount of transfers versus heavy amount of high school guys to try to balance our roster. I think that's the important part with this transfer portal. You can get kind of transfer heavy, and then all of a sudden you get very unbalanced in your roster. So in order for us to keep depth across the board and be able to sustain consistency throughout, we want to have a balance, and that's what we were able to do. We still believe in recruiting the high school athlete. We just have to be able to adapt to the times. You either adapt or you die. The transfer portal is here. It's alive. My opinion or your opinion on if what it should or shouldn't be does not matter. All we know is it's here. There's a lot of positives that come out of the transfer portal. We can think over our time here. There's a lot of guys that have come and played for us that came via the transfer portal. There's a lot of guys that have come and played for us and are still playing for us via the high school rank. So I think it's a really unique situation. We've got to do a really good job of balancing it, and I think we've done that, and we'll continue to do that. These young men you'll get a chance to speak to today went through the recruiting process the right way. They vetted their options. They talked to different coaches. And I think when you talk to them, you'll kind of hear the same resounding message that, this place felt like home. The coaches made them feel like they were important here. They saw opportunity. And that just not only speaks for me, but the coaching staff, but this community. When fans and recruits and prospects come, this community does a really good job of making them feel at home. So we're all in this together. These young men will help us continue to close the gap as we've been doing. We're really excited to get them going here in the fourth quarter program in about a week, and then in the spring ball, and then obviously ending with the spring game before we head into the summer. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
What did you learn in the process last year that helped you this year maximize what you're doing?
I think you got to have balance, and you can look at high school film, and then you turn around and look at a transfer, and the surface level eye would be, oh, wow, this player has played, a year or 2 years in college, so we want this player, this high school player, he's going to take time to develop. But I think you got to have balance, and I think the way you do that is kind of staying consistent across the board with how many at each position you plan to take. The other part of it is you got to continue to recruit high school, because sometimes it's a lot easier to just say, well, we'll go to one or two high schools that always have players and get their players. But you got to continue to comb through the country, in your areas as position coaches nationally. I think recruiting has gone a lot more national, although we have a kind of a radius that we stay in. It's still a little more national than it was, 10, 15 years ago. So I think you got to stay consistent to your plan.
When you look at the list of the 25, a lot of defensive guys. Why was that an emphasis this recruiting cycle?
Well, because you guys beat me up for offense, so I figured if I get all defensive guys and they'd let me, maybe I do coach the defense too. But I think, again, replacing the areas that we lost some guys, that's a big piece of it. Depth is a huge piece of it. Offensively, we were a lot younger last year. Not necessarily younger as in freshman, sophomore, but just younger in guys who had not played. And when you throw in the COVID class, we had some older guys on paper, but we had a lot of guys on offense that hadn't played a lot. You think about Cam Fancher, who ended the season. He really hadn't played a lot, but that was his third year in college going into it. So young as in playing experience, but old as in being around for a while. So for us, offensively, we've got some pieces in place. Last year, we took a heavy number of offensive guys. Those guys got a chance to develop all year, which will be good for them moving forward. Defensively, we lost some pieces, not necessarily graduating a ton of starters, but we lost a lot of depth and back end guys, so we had to fill that. And then ultimately, competition is the greatest teacher and greatest motivator. So I'd rather have three superstars at one position and make them compete. At the end of the day, they're going to get better, we're going to get better. And I think what we've done is we've created a lot of flexibility, created a lot of competition and depth.
Coach, what's your philosophy on when kids come, whether they're portal guys or they're high school kids, to say you can get on the field right away, you just got to work, right? I mean, now does that balance it out even more that whoever the best man is plays?
Yeah, I think, again, when you have competition, it's easier to say, hey, if you're the best player, you'll play. Because usually what happens is everybody sees that, hey, he's better than me right now. Or he's performing more consistent than me is kind of what you usually see. The issue comes when you have no depth and you have to play a guy just because he's the best player in the room. Well, that doesn't necessarily make him the best player for the team. So when you have competition, all these guys love to compete. And I think actually the more competition you have, the easier it is for guys to say, you know what, I've got to beat him out, and he's doing really well, and I got to do really well. I learned that at the University of Alabama. Every day you go to practice, you got to compete to play. There's no handouts, there's no gimmies, there's no, well, I've been here 2 years, so I have to be the starter. And I think that's what we've created a little bit here. And ultimately, they all want to see everybody have success, but the way to do that is to make sure everybody's at their best.
Coach, obviously, Lance Gendry goes down in Tulane. You guys attack the transfer portal, getting these defensive guys. What challenges, if any, were presented during that time with the coaching change?
Well, again, I don't think I think kids are attracted to a culture. And obviously, coaches are very important. Don't get me wrong. Lance Gendry did a heck of a job for us for the 2 years he was here, and for him and his family to be able to go back home. I can't say that I wanted him to go, but I can't say that, he's making a bad decision. But again, I think players attract to a culture. I try to do a really good job as the head coach of being involved in all the recruits. So that not one coach or one side of the ball is so connected to a young man that if that person leaves or whatever, that recruit doesn't feel like he knows someone else on the staff. The Alabama way is they change coaches every year. And Coach Saban has found a way to continuously get kids to come there. And I think, again, we're attracting them to the culture. We're attracting them to the resources. We're attracting them to the core values that are going to make them successful. The coaches and the people that are a part of it are just a piece of it. I think all of these guys trust me that I'm going to hire a very good coordinator and very good position coaches. I met with the leadership committee, and we kind of joked because when I first got here, they all begged me to keep the DC and the D-line coach and the defensive staff that was here. And I said, okay, well, trust me. All right, we hired Lance, we hired the defensive staff, and now they're all like, well, Coach, we'd like to have, Lance back. Well, we did this again 2 years ago, guys. So, again, I think, anytime you have really good people, they develop really good relationships. And like you guys, probably cried when Grant left the HD, and, it hurt a lot of people. But you guys were able to kind of, probably improve when he left. But no, when good people leave, the program, obviously it leaves some hurt feelings because of the connections you make. But I think as the leader of the organization, I've got to be able to show consistency in the type of people I hire so that the players ultimately end up trusting me. And I told the defense, as great as I thought Lance was, ultimately it's them. It's their defense. It's their culture. It's what they do. If they get drafted by the San Francisco 49ers, they can't tell, who to be the DC. They got to go out and play. And I think now where we are in college football, where we are in society in general, kids understand, hey, we're really in control of this team in this, situation. So we will select a coordinator. We have a guy in mind. We're trying to make sure we do it the right way because there's other schools involved with signing day and making sure that we do it the right way. I do have a plan. I know sometimes on third down you guys don't think I do, but we do have a plan. And as I told you guys with the transfers, we will let you guys know so that you guys can write the stories. But again, it's about quality people. It's about people that fit Marshall. Because obviously you don't want to bring anybody in that doesn't fit this community, this university, and our culture. But I am excited about the candidate, and when you guys get a chance to meet him, I think you'll be excited.
Coach, would the DC candidate be in-house or external? We can tell us about your potential hire for it.
Yeah, it's combination. I don't know yet because it comes down to a lot of things, resources, right? You got to, resources come into play, families come into play. Some candidates in-house are a possibility. As we vet through the list and kind of narrow it down to the final guy, it'll kind of come with all of those things, right? Resources, families that move, people have kids in school, those type of decisions. So probably I would say by this time next week we'll know, but it's kind of a checklist, right? This option, this option, this option. We kind of paused it for Marshall Day at the governor's at the Capitol today and signing day, so we'll be able to finish it the next couple of days.
And same with the O-line coach. Will Bill Legg continue being the O-line?
Yeah, Bill Legg's going to continue to be the O-line coach. Billy Gonzalez will come in and be our tight end coach. Obviously, Bill Legg took over kind of midway. Bill Legg's background has been kind of O-line for a long time. I try to hire people that have flexibility. Right, you're at a place like Marshall where you got to maximize your resources. You can't just say, hey, we're at Ohio State where we're going to pay the top dollar for this guy to do this job. I think you got to have flexibility. Turnover and change is a part of what you deal with at the Group of 5 level. I would imagine that every team at the Group of 5 level. So, for example, I talked to Sean Clark over the break. He and I become good friends just because he's here, from the Charleston area. He's had 4 offensive coordinators in 4 years. That's what happens at the Group 5 level. When you're good, people move on and get opportunities. That's the beauty of what we do, just like players, right? When they play well, they move on and get other opportunities at the next level. So this level is a level that you got to be ready to kind of flex and pivot. So Bill Legg will kind of just stay in place. Billy Gonzalez, who is, background-wise is a receiver coach. He's done some running backs. But, again, a lot of the tight end stuff is a combination of receiver and O-line. So, you have Bill Legg and Billy Gonzalez who ultimately can combo the tight end position. I think Coach Gonzalez is going to give us a lot of experience. You're talking about a guy who's won 2 national championships. I won 1. He's won 2. He may know more than me. A guy that's recruited at a really high level. A guy that's developed players at a really high level. It doesn't matter what position. If you can develop a player, you can develop a player. That's finding out the player's weaknesses, developing a relationship with the player, and getting him motivated to improve. That's what development is. And I think Coach Gonzalez has done a really good job of that. He's going to bring a wealth of knowledge for me. He's been around a lot of really good head coaches. He's coached in a lot of really good leagues. So really excited to have him on board as well.
You guys obviously have a history as a recruiter. This your second full recruiting cycle. Here at Marshall. Has that made the process easier as far as routine goes to get through the recruiting season?
I don't know if it's ever easier because, this NIL deal is real, and it's not used for recruiting. Okay, let me say that. Where's Tuttle? Okay, it's not used for recruiting, but what it is used is what is your community selling to these young men? How can they create value in our dynamic? So we're really competing community versus community. Well, there's some other schools that are in a little different community. I won't say better because I think, what we have here is really good. But some other schools are in a different community, and they're at different levels of maximizing the NIL opportunities. So when we bring young men in and we present the opportunities that they can make, obviously they're comparing those to other opportunities. So I don't know if it makes the recruiting part of it easier. What it does is it makes you continue to work at it. I think at the end of the day, hard work. I kind of pride myself on trying to outwork people. So I'm texting, calling, trying to get to know these guys consistently. Putting coaches in position to develop really good relationships, and then ultimately just being yourself. Like, you're not going to play for Coach Huff if you don't like hard work. And I don't care. We're going to work hard. And ultimately, that's what's going to make us successful. And the kids that like that, come here. The kids that don't, they don't. And that's okay. Marshall's not for everybody. But I think when you're authentic and you're real, and you tell the kid when you sit them down, hey, look, don't come here if you don't want to work hard. Don't come here if you don't want to do things right. Don't come here if you don't want to win. If you do those things, I can guarantee you that you'll have an opportunity to create value for yourself. Now, how much value? Well, that's up to you. How hard do you work? And I think what has happened is our locker room kind of echoes that when they actually get around our guys. And you know what? Ultimately, competitors like to compete. Doesn't matter the size of the logo. Doesn't matter the size of the stadium. Competitors like to compete. We got Nas Johnson's going to play in the Super Bowl in some odd days. Well, Nas Johnson played at Marshall. Now, there's going to be some guys on that field that played at big schools wherever, but Nas Johnson played at Marshall, came here, maximized the opportunity, created value for himself. Now he's doing it on the biggest stage. So I think when guys see that, guys see a pathway to that, you got an opportunity to recruit some really good young men.
Sorry, let me interrupt. Not to put you on the spot, but because JJ's a local kid and obviously playing at a high level, how important is it for you to reach out to those guys and have a guy like him who's been in the battles and also, wanted to be here? How important is it?
We don't reach out to the guys. We wait until they officially enter the portal, and then we do things. Yeah, no. I think it's really good. I think anytime a young man is willing to come back home, it says two things. It says, one, his experience here before he left was good, and it says what he sees from afar that's going on here now is good. JJ's one of the young men. He had a lot of options. When you go to Wake Forest and those type of schools, academically, you put yourself in a whole nother realm. So he could have went to another academic school. He could have went, all across the country. But for him to want to come back, that says a lot about him as a person, says a lot about his family. And it says he sees an opportunity here. And that ultimately is all you can ask for in life. So him being able to come back, I think, again, that shows, he's another young man that's going to be on the team that's from here. I think Owen Porter's probably another young man that's from here that's really maximizing his opportunity in this community. JJ's going to have an opportunity to do the same thing. You flip it around. We've got some kind of herd legacies that are on the team now that are going to have an opportunity not only to kind of play where their father played, but kind of engrave their own lane, and that's another good thing. They not only do they've been getting hit with the Marshall for life. JJ grew up in his parents were telling me like section 102. He's got a picture of like a Marshall shirt, him and his friends at a game. If that experience wasn't good, he wouldn't have came back. So everything matters. And I know sometimes we don't think so, but everything matters, man. When you go to the gas station, what people say to you matters. When you grow up here and you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, what people say about Marshall matters. When your parents play here and you grow up with the Marshall love and logo, it matters. So we try to make sure that the experience for everybody, because you never know. You never know when that young man sitting in section 103 is going to come back and make some big plays for us. So.
Does this recruitment class close that gap, and if so, how?
Yeah, I don't know if it does because we got to play the game, and I think the gap is not just players. Now, that's a big part of it. Don't get me wrong. But the gap is everything, resources, right? How many trainers do we have? Do we have training table? Do we have a nutritionist? Are we able to keep the guys healthy? Are we able to pay the staff so that when opportunities come, we can be competitive? Are we able to fill the stadium? Are we able to be active in the NIL lane for the guys that are here so that they can, maximize their opportunities? So the gap is not just players. Now, the gap is coaching too, right? We got to make the right call on third down. We got to have a good plan. But this is a big piece of it because at the end of the day, the players on the field make a huge piece. But we've got to do some things and continue to do some things resource-wise, and we have. We're not there yet, but we've got to continue to do some things resource-wise so that when that player steps on the field, he is the most resource player in the conference. When that happens, then the gap will be closed, and then we'll be chasing the next gap. For where we're going with the college football playoffs, you don't get into the college football playoffs. It's not a lottery system where they just, they roll a big ball and then Marshall's in. That's not how it happens. You got to play your way in, and you got to play your way in for 2 or 3 years. You take the Cincinnati model, right? You can't just have a good season. So these young men are going to help us make strides towards that, but we got to continue as a university, as a community, to close it as well. It kind of goes together, if that makes sense.
Last question.
Coach, you mentioned the fourth quarter program. How crucial is that when you're introducing 25 new players to get them used to the Marshall way?
Yeah, I think, when you look back on it, it's probably the most critical piece of the entire organization. So you look back to when we first got here the first year. We didn't get a full fourth quarter program because of COVID. So we had, you go 2 weeks and you have to stop. Or you get a COVID breakout and you have to shut down for 10 days. Or you can't work out in groups of more than 10. All right, and we won 7 games. At the end of that season, we wore down pretty good. Well, we come back, full calendar year, we get a full fourth quarter program every day. All the workouts, all the drills, all the extra meeting time, all of those things, and the result was a lot different. So I think, again, it's the most important part of the entire phase that we have, obviously because it sets the foundation, especially when you're introducing 25 new guys. And these guys, all of them should be contributing some way, somehow to the level of their ability. So, again, for them to have a good foundation set in what it takes, how we do things, what it takes to physically and mentally be ready to play, springboards us into the spring, which springboards us into the summer and the season.
All right. Thank you, Coach Huff.
Good. Thank you, guys. Look forward to seeing you guys at the event inside. Appreciate all you do. Welcome back. Excited to get this season going. Go Herd.